The world didn't end with a bang, but with a red light. And in that frozen moment, my entire reality shattered into pieces I didn't know how to pick up. My name is Elias Vance. I'm a man who built a life on certainty, on contracts, on handshakes, on the belief that if you provide, you protect. All of that dissolved one sweltering afternoon, trapped in a gridlock of honking cars and my own simmering thoughts. The heat that day was a physical weight, a thick, oppressive blanket over the city, pushing temperatures past 100. I was driving back from a doctor's appointment, a routine checkup that had ended with the usual gentle scolding. "Your pressure's up, Elias. You have to find a way to dial down the stress." A hollow laugh echoed in my mind. Stress was the wallpaper of my life lately, a constant, peeling pattern of worries about business, about retirement, about the silent phone calls from a daughter who had grown distant. Simone, my brilliant, kind-hearted Simone, who had stepped into a new life a few years ago with a man who wore polished smiles like armor. You know that feeling? When you're so lost in your own head, the world becomes a blur outside your windshield? That was me. Counting problems like other people count sheep. I was at a major crossroad, the kind with lanes that sprawl in every direction. The light was stubbornly red. Delivery bikes sliced through the stagnant air between cars. The symphony of impatient horns was a familiar chorus. I glanced at my watch, sighed, and let my gaze drift ahead. And that's when I saw her. A young woman, skinny in a way that spoke of missing meals, not fitness. Her hair was a tangled cloud around a face turned down. Her clothes, once bright I could tell, were stained and hung loose. And her feet, they were bare on the asphalt that shimmered with heat. On her chest, strapped tight, was a fabric carrier, and inside it, a small head lolled, a baby's cheek flushed an alarming feverish red. My first detached thought was one of weary sadness. Another heartbreaking story. Another life unraveling at the seams. She moved from car to car, her movements jerky, desperate. Her hand extended, palm up, then snapped back to count the few coins passed to her. This wasn't calm petitioning. This was the frantic tally of survival. Then, as she leaned toward a window a few cars ahead, the angle shifted. The sun caught her profile. My breath vanished. The sharp line of a cheekbone I'd kissed 1,000 times. The curve of an ear where she tucked her hair as a little girl, concentrating on her homework. It was like a sucker punch to the soul, knocking the air from my lungs. Simone. My daughter was begging on the street. My body moved before my mind could process the command. The window whirred down. Her name tore from my throat, raw and unrecognizable. Simone. She froze. The coins in her hand chimed a soft, pathetic melody as she turned. Her eyes met mine, and in them, I didn't see surprise. I saw sheer, unadulterated terror, the look of a trapped animal. Her free hand flew to her face, a useless attempt to hide, but it was too late. The truth was laid bare on that scorching concrete. For seconds that felt like hours, I was paralyzed. I stared at the sharp angles of her collarbone, at the tremor in her fingers as they clutched the coins, at the sweat-soaked hair of my granddaughter Maya pressed against her chest. "Get in the car." Now, the words were gravel. She shook her head, took a step back. "Dad, please, not here. Just go. Get in the car." My voice wasn't my own. It was louder, a command that cracked through the humid air. The driver behind me laid on his horn. A long, angry blast. The light was still red. The pressure, the noise, the sight of her, it created a vacuum of urgency. Finally, moving as if through deep water, she stumbled to the passenger side, fumbled with the handle, and collapsed into the seat, curling her body around Maya. I hit the button, sealing us in a sudden, tense silence. The cacophony of the intersection became muted thunder. Inside, the only sounds were my ragged breathing and the soft, distressed whimper from the carrier. "Simone," I began, my voice low, fighting the volcano rising in my chest. "What in God's name? What are you doing?" She didn't answer. Her head was bowed, her filthy fingers gently stroking Maya's overheated forehead. The baby whimpered again, a weak, tired sound. A question, monstrous and absurd, was pounding against my skull. A question about the foundations I thought I'd built for her. I forced it out, each word tasting like ash. "Where is the car I bought for you? Where is the house?" She flinched as if struck. Her eyes closed, and when they opened, they were swimming in a pain so deep it seemed bottomless. She tried to shape her lips into something resembling a smile, but it crumbled into a grimace of utter sorrow. "Dad," she whispered, her voice scraped raw, "it's all gone." "Gone? What does that mean, gone? The house title has your name on it. The car is in your name." I could hear the panic, the fury, leaking into my tone. She took a shuddering breath, and the story that spilled out was not made of words, but of shattered glass. Marcus and his mother Giselle. The names hung in the air, toxic and familiar. Marcus Waverly, the charming, ambitious man who had swept my daughter off her feet. Giselle Waverly, the mother with a smile like sweetened poison and eyes that constantly calculated. They took the car. They said it was for the family's use. They emptied my bank accounts, said I wasn't responsible enough to manage our household funds. They put me out of the house, Dad, and they said if I tried to take Maya, they'd use every connection they have to make sure I never saw her again. Numbness spread from my core, icy and paralyzing. I looked at her, this hollowed-out version of my vibrant girl, and then at Maya, my granddaughter, living in a carrier on the side of the road. The steering wheel groaned under my grip. "They threw you out. You're his wife. You're Maya's mother." A quick, jerky nod. Tears finally broke free, tracing clean lines through the grime on her cheeks. I tried to be what they wanted. I was so patient. I thought if I just loved him enough, if I was quiet enough. Have you ever felt a rage so pure it becomes silent? A cold, crystalline fury that stops your heart for a beat? That's what filled me. It wasn't a shout. It was a vow, forming in the stillness. How did it come to this? To standing at an intersection? I asked, forcing my voice into something softer, terrified of the answer. She looked down at her bare, cracked feet as if seeing them for the first time. "Because I have nothing, Dad. Not a cent. Marcus managed all the money. Giselle said a good wife doesn't question her husband's provision. I signed papers. After Maya was born, I was so tired. Darnell was always there." Darnell? The name was a new piece of the grotesque puzzle. Marcus's brother, the self-proclaimed legal mind of the family. He had documents. He said it was just administrative updates for the house and car. I was exhausted. Maya was crying. I just signed. I trusted them. Her voice broke completely. And then, when I asked for money for groceries, they called me wasteful. When I asked for my phone back, Marcus got terrifying. I tried to leave once, just to clear my head, and Darnell blocked the door. So 2 weeks ago, when I said I was coming to see you, Marcus said if I walked out with Maya, he'd make sure the courts gave him full custody. That I was an unstable, ungrateful woman. Giselle said she had friends at City Hall. Darnell said rewriting a birth certificate was easily arranged. She rubbed a yellowing bruise on her upper arm, hidden until now. I ran, with just a diaper bag. He snatched it. Darnell pushed me. I fell, Maya. I just ran. No phone. No money. I was too scared to come to you, thinking they'd follow me and make a scene. Take her right from your doorstep. She named a shelter. Then a young volunteer, Natalie, who had taken pity and shown her the relatively safer space under a highway overpass. And then I had to get formula for Maya. So I started asking for help. The light had been green for who knows how long. Cars streamed around us. I put the car in drive and moved forward, my mind clicking into a cold, strategic mode I hadn't used in years. The protective, providing father was gone. In his place was a general assessing a battlefield. Taking them straight to my home was the instinct, but it was also a trap. If Marcus had someone watching my place, showing up with Simone would be the trigger. They'd arrive with drama, possibly police, claiming a parental kidnapping. "We're not going to my house," I said, turning away from the direction of my neighborhood. Simone startled. "Dad, where are we going?" "They can't find us." "That's exactly why we're not going home." I drove to a place called the Wayfarer's Rest, a small independent motel tucked behind an old diner. The owner, Hector, was a man who owed me a favor from a lifetime ago. He was gossipy, but understood the currency of discretion. Pulling around back, we slipped in through a side entrance. Hector's eyes bulged when he saw Simone clinging to Maya. "Good heavens, Elias. Is that?" I raised a hand. "Hector, I need a room. The quietest one you have. And not a word to anyone." To his credit, he asked no questions. He simply nodded, handed me a key, and promised to bring up a jug of water and a portable cooler. The room was musty, but clean. The moment the door was locked and the deadbolt thrown, the dam in Simone broke. Silent, body-racking sobs shook her as she sat on the edge of the bed, clutching Maya, who was now crying in earnest, a thin, reedy sound of pure discomfort. "Let me see her," I said gently. I unwrapped the carrier. Maya was damp with sweat, her skin hot to the touch. Her eyes were glassy. This wasn't a child who needed just love. She needed immediate care. I called down to Hector. "I need formula for a 10-month-old. And diapers. The pharmacy brand, please. And Hector, invisibility." "Understood," came the firm reply. I turned to Simone, who was watching me with a mixture of hope and paralyzing fear. "Simone, look at me. I need you to tell me everything. From the very beginning, the slow, careful erosion. I need to understand the blueprint of this." And so she talked. She painted a picture of a love that curdled slowly, of Marcus, who in public was the doting husband, but at home became a warden of petty permissions. Could she visit a friend? Could she buy a new shirt? Then Giselle's shadow lengthened, moving from frequent visits to a pervasive presence, critiquing her cooking, her cleaning, her very nature. She said, "You made me weak, Dad. That your support was a crutch. That seeing you would curse my marriage." My jaw ached from clenching. "They cut you off from me." A slow, pained nod. "When I was pregnant, they said my phone number was compromised by scams. They got me a new one. But Marcus or Darnell always had it. Anytime I reached for it, I was too stressed. I needed to focus on the baby." She described the final, calculated moves, the safekeeping of the deed and car title, the dizzying array of documents Darnell presented postpartum, when she was physically broken and emotionally spent. The constant refrain that she contributed nothing, that the money, her money, my gifts, was merely family funds managed by Marcus. They didn't just take her things, they systematically dismantled her person, brick by brick, until they thought only a shell remained. I was mapping it all in my mind. The players, Marcus, the entitled controller, Giselle, the manipulative matriarch, Darnell, the tactical enabler, the assets, car, house, savings, the weapon, Maya. We were so focused on the past, we didn't hear the future arriving. There was a rapid, heavy knock on the door. Boom, boom, boom. Simone turned ghost white, scrambling back on the bed, covering Maya's body with her own. A man's voice, slick and artificially calm, oozed through the wood. "Mr. Vance? I'm here on behalf of the Waverly family. We understand there's a domestic situation. We're just hoping to talk this through peacefully." I held a finger to my lips, my eyes locked on Simone's terrified ones. "Don't move. Don't make a sound." The knocking resumed, harder. "Mr. Vance? It's Leo. Marcus sent me. I'm coming in a spirit of peace. Open the door, sir." I walked to the door but didn't unlock it. "How did you find this place?" A soft, humorless chuckle. "I was just given an address, sir. They're worried. They say you have Simone. This is a family matter. Let's not make it something ugly." I cracked the door open just enough to fill the gap with my body. The man, Leo, was in his 30s, wearing a crisp polo shirt and a smile that didn't touch his cold, assessing eyes. He tried to peer over my shoulder. "Simone isn't here," I said flatly. "Sir, come on," he said, leaning. "Marcus is concerned. Giselle is heartbroken over her grandbaby. Let's be reasonable." The mention of Giselle's manufactured concern was the final confirmation. This was a retrieval team. "If they were so heartbroken," I said, my voice dropping low, "they wouldn't have left a mother and infant to bake on the street." His smile tightened. "I don't know anything about that. My job is to bring her home. If she's in there, I'm leaving with her." I met his gaze, letting every ounce of my cold fury show. "You go back and tell Marcus that if he wants his world to remain standing, he will stop sending messengers. Simone doesn't want to see him." Leo's facade cracked, revealing the steel beneath. "Sir, don't make this difficult. If she doesn't return the easy way, the story changes. Marcus can file a report. Say she took the child without consent. That gets messy for everyone." A laugh, short and bitter, escaped me. They were trying to play chess with a child's set. "File it," I said. "But if you're still outside this door in 30 seconds, I will be filing reports for harassment, intimidation, and trespassing. Your choice." He glared, the threat hanging between us. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away. I shut the door, locked it, and leaned my forehead against the cool wood. Simone was trembling. "How did they find us so fast?" "It doesn't matter," I said, turning to her. "What matters is they're scared. They know I've found you, and that changes everything." I pulled out my phone. "We can't win this with just anger. We need strategy. We need evidence. And we need a different kind of warrior." I scrolled through my contacts, past business associates and old friends, to a name I hadn't dialed in years but whose reputation was forged in fire. Julian Thorne, attorney at law. He answered on the second ring. "Elias Vance. This is a voice from the past." "Julian," I said, no preamble, "I need you. My daughter has been financially bled, physically threatened, and thrown out of her home by her husband and his family. They are threatening to permanently take her baby. I need legal action that is swift, precise, and permanent." There was a beat of absolute silence on the line. Then, His voice shifted into a calm, commanding tone I remembered well. Elias, listen carefully. Do not go to your home. Do not engage with them again. Tell me everything, slowly. I am writing it down. As I began to relay the nightmare, I looked at Simone. For the first time since that red light, I saw a flicker in her eyes that wasn't pure terror. It was the faint, fragile spark of hope. What would you do in that moment, when the walls feel like they're closing in, and the only path forward is through a legal labyrinth against people who play dirty? The fight was no longer on the street. It was about to move into a realm of depositions and paper trails, where every word could be a weapon. The silence after I hung up with Julian Thorne was dense, filled only with Maya's congested breathing and the low hum of the motel's ancient air conditioner. Simone sat on the edge of the bed, her posture that of someone expecting the roof to cave in at any second. The spark of hope I'd seen was still there, but it was a tiny flame guttering in a vast wind of fear. "He's coming," I said, my voice firm in the quiet room. "Julian, he's not just a lawyer. He's an architect of consequences. We're not hiding anymore. We're building a case." She nodded, a mechanical jerk of her head. "What do we do until he gets here?" "We move," I said. Leo knew this location. That means it's compromised. It might have been a lucky guess, a tale from the intersection we didn't spot, or someone at the front desk who took a call. The how is irrelevant. The fact is, they have it. I called Hector's extension. "Hector, we're leaving." "Was anyone asking about us at the front desk in the last hour?" Hector's voice was grim. "A guy called about 15 minutes before your visitor showed up. Said he was a cousin, concerned about family staying here. Gave a vague description that could have fit half the city." I played dumb, Elias. Swore I hadn't seen anyone matching it. But if they sent a man around back right after the call, they were verifying. "Thank you, Hector. Forget you saw us. Already forgotten. Good luck." I turned to Simone. "We need to go somewhere with no connection to me, to you, to anyone in our past. Somewhere they can't predict." I ran through a mental list of assets. My own home was a trap. My office another. Vacation properties were in my name. Then I remembered. My cousin Clara, a geologist, was on a 6-month research expedition in Iceland. She'd given me a key to her townhouse in a quiet, aging complex on the other side of the city, asking me to check on her plants periodically. She'd bought it under her maiden name years ago. It had no link to Vance, and certainly none to Simone Waverly. "Get Maya ready. We're leaving in 2 minutes." The transition was executed with a tense, silent efficiency. We exited through the same back alley, the night air now cool and carrying the scent of distant rain. I drove a circuitous route for 40 minutes, watching my mirrors, turning down empty residential streets and doubling back, until I was certain we were clean. Clara's townhouse was dark and smelled of closed-up air and potting soil. It was modest, furnished in comfortable, dated pieces, but it felt like a fortress. The locks were solid, the neighbors were retirees who kept to themselves, and the street was poorly lit. For the first time since pulling her into the car, I saw Simone's shoulders drop a fraction from her ears. We spent what remained of the night in a state of exhausted vigil. I made up a bed for Maya in a padded drawer, and Simone finally slept. But it was a fitful, twitching sleep, punctuated by soft whimpers. I sat in an armchair by the front window, watching the empty street, my mind racing over Julian's initial instructions. Preserve all evidence. Record every communication. Establish a timeline. Dawn was a gray smear in the sky when a discreet black sedan pulled into the driveway. Julian Thorne emerged. He looked older, of course, his hair now gunmetal gray and closely cut, but he carried the same aura of contained, intelligent force. He was accompanied by another man, younger, with a quiet, observant demeanor and an athletic build that suggested former law enforcement. This was Ray, Julian explained, a private investigator and forensic financial analyst. He was the one who would follow the money. Their entrance was calm and professional. Julian shook my hand, his grip firm and brief, then turned his attention to Simone, who had emerged from the bedroom clutching Maya. He didn't offer platitudes or pitying looks. He assessed her with a detached, clinical empathy that, paradoxically, made her stand a little straighter. Simone, I'm Julian Thorne. Your father has retained me. My only goals are the permanent security of you and your child, and the full legal and financial accountability of those who harmed you. To do that, I need you to be a historian. Can you do that? She swallowed and gave a shaky nod. Yes. Good. Julian set up a laptop at the kitchen table. Ray took a seat opposite Simone with a notepad, and we began. This time, the questioning was surgical. Julian walked her through every financial document she'd ever signed, probing for names of banks, account numbers, even the color of the ink. Ray focused on the patterns of control. When did you last have unrestricted access to your debit card? Can you describe the login process for your online banking? Who was present when you signed the homestead papers? What was Darnell wearing? A detail, Julian later explained, that can help establish credibility and specific recollection. Simone, fortified by sleep and the presence of this capable, unflappable team, began to remember with sharper clarity. She recalled the bank, First Mercantile Trust. She remembered her old account number, her online banking password, Maya's birthday, she said, fresh tears springing at the irony. She described the blue folder Darnell carried, the notary stamp that seemed off-center, the way Marcus had held Maya, bouncing her just a little too roughly while she signed. Have you ever watched professionals work a crime scene? There's a methodical detachment that is in itself a kind of therapy. For Simone, recounting the events to Julian and Ray wasn't a re-traumatization. It was a transformation of chaotic pain into ordered evidence. Each remembered detail was a piece of armor being fitted to her. She was no longer just a victim. She was the primary witness for the prosecution. Ray excused himself to make calls, his voice a low murmur in the other room. Julian turned to me. The immediate threats are twofold: a preemptive custody filing from Marcus and continued physical harassment to intimidate Simone into returning. We address the second first. I've already drafted a cease and desist letter to Marcus, Giselle, and Darnell Waverly, citing their threats and the illegal eviction. It will be delivered by courier today. It has no direct legal force, but it establishes a paper trail and puts them on notice that we are now operating in the legal sphere. It often makes bullies pause. And the custody threat? I asked. We beat him to it, Julian said simply, but not in the way he expects. We are not filing for custody. Simone already has it. We are filing for a permanent restraining order and a preliminary injunction to freeze all disputed assets, the house, the car, the bank accounts, pending a full civil hearing on charges of financial abuse, coercion, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. We frame the narrative first. Simone is not a runaway wife. She is a refugee from domestic and financial tyranny who is seeking protection and justice. It was a masterstroke. Instead of playing defense in Marcus's chosen game of child custody, we were opening a new, more devastating front of criminal financial abuse. While Julian typed, my phone began to vibrate. Not calls, but a torrent of text messages and social media notifications. I glanced at the screen. My blood went cold, then hot. A message from a cousin, Elias. Is it true? I saw a video of Simone begging downtown. People are saying she's unstable and stole the baby from Marcus. What's happening? A link to a local community forum. The title, Scam Alert, Young Mother's Sob Story, a Ploy for Cash. There, clear as day, was the cell phone video of Simone at the intersection, her face blurred, just enough to provide plausible deniability for the poster, but not enough to hide her identity from anyone who knew her. The comments were a cesspool. She looks drugged. I heard the father is a rich guy, and she's trying to extort him. That baby should be with its dad. Another text, from an unknown number, Mr. Vance. The court of public opinion is swift. Bring Simone home before her name is ruined forever. A concerned friend. Julian, I said, my voice tight. They've launched the smear campaign. He took my phone, scanned the messages, his expression unchanged. Predictable. They're leveraging shame and social pressure. They want to isolate Simone further and create a public perception that will sway any family court judge. This is their opening move. He handed the phone to Ray, who had returned. Ray, can you start tracing the origin of that video post? Use your digital contacts. Ray nodded. On it. The coordinated comments suggest paid engagement. I'll find the source. Simone had gone pale again, her hands shaking as she scrolled through her own cheap burner phone I'd bought her that morning. They're saying I'm a scam artist, that I'm kidnapping my own child. Her voice was a thin wire of despair. Julian turned to her. Simone, listen to me. Their narrative is a balloon, full of hot air, fragile, and destined to pop when met with a sharp fact. We are collecting the sharpest facts imaginable. Do not respond. Do not engage. Every minute you stay silent while we build the case, their lies grow more desperate and more easily disproven. Before she could answer, her new phone buzzed. A text from another unknown number, this one more direct. You think hiding helps? The money is Marcus's. The house is Marcus's. The child is Marcus's. Come back now, or you will lose her for good. Simone made a small, choked sound and clutched Maya, who began to fuss. I took the phone from her. They have this number. How? Ray frowned. It's a prepaid, bought with cash. Either they have insanely good surveillance, which is unlikely, or the leak is at the provider level, or someone you contacted with it compromised it. He looked at Simone. Who did you call? Her eyes went wide with realization and fresh guilt. Natalie, the volunteer from the shelter. I called her this morning from this phone to thank her and tell her I was safe. I thought she could be trusted. She probably can, Julian said calmly. But if Marcus's family is as connected as they claim, they may have someone inside the shelter network, or they may have pressured Natalie after your call. It's a lesson. From now on, all external communication goes through me or Ray. You are a ghost. The psychological warfare was escalating, and it was taking its toll. Simone retreated into the bedroom to nurse Maya, her movements stiff with renewed fear. Julian, however, seemed energized by the opposition. Their aggression is a gift, Elias. It shows fear. They wanted this resolved quietly, with Simone slinking back under their control. Your intervention, and now my involvement, has escalated it to a level they didn't prepare for. They're scrambling. Scrambling people make mistakes. His own phone rang. He listened for a moment, his face grave. I see. Thank you, Hector. He hung up. That was Ben, from the first motel. 2 men matching Marcus and Darnell's description showed up there an hour ago, demanding to know which room the old man and the girl were in. They threatened to get his license revoked. He held firm, but they were brazen. They're getting reckless. Ray looked up from his laptop. I've got the first financial thread. As of 4 months ago, regular automated transfers began siphoning money from Simone's personal savings account into a commercial account for Waverly Family Holdings, LLC. The signatory on that LLC is Darnell Waverly. The paper trail is there. It's not a shared account. It's a one-way diversion. It was the first concrete proof. The embezzlement. I felt a surge of grim satisfaction. That's it. That's our proof of theft. It's a start, Julian corrected. But they'll claim it was authorized for family expenses. We need to prove coercion. We need them to admit, on record, that they believe they are entitled to her assets simply because she married him. He steepled his fingers. We need to bait a conversation. My stomach tightened. You want to meet with them? I want you to meet with them, Julian clarified. Alone, in a public but controlled setting. You will present yourself as a weary father, desperate to settle this to protect Simone's reputation. You will express a willingness to negotiate the return of some assets in exchange for peace. You will play defeated. Greedy, entitled people cannot resist the scent of a settlement. In their gloating, they will confess. Ray and I will be nearby, recording everything. It was a dangerous gambit, to look into the eyes of the man who had destroyed my daughter and pretend capitulation. But I understood the logic. Simone will never agree to it. She doesn't have to, Julian said. In fact, she must not. Her safety is paramount. This is a tactical move on a separate front. We record their admissions, we get a clear look at their strategy, and we add it to the evidentiary pile. Are you willing? I looked toward the closed bedroom door, behind which my daughter and granddaughter hid. What do I need to do? Julian spent the next hour coaching me. The script was simple: express concern over the viral video, claim Simone is emotionally fragile and listening to me, hint that I might persuade her to return if certain conditions, the return of the car, a cash settlement, were met. My role was to be conciliatory, worried about scandal, and slightly out of my depth. Appeal to their contempt, Julian advised. They think you're a sentimental old man. Use that. I sent a carefully worded text to Giselle's number, the one Simone remembered, Mrs. Waverly. This has gone too far. The public videos are destroying our family. I want to talk. A quiet resolution. Name a public place. The response was almost instantaneous, as if she'd been waiting for my breaking point. Mr. Vance. Finally, sense. The Garden Cafe on Main. Tomorrow, 11 a.m. Marcus will join me. Let's fix this. The stage was set. That evening, however, the pressure found us again. As dusk settled, a motorcycle pulled up to the curb 2 houses down. The engine cut. A familiar, lanky figure dismounted and walked with casual arrogance up to Clara's townhouse. Darnell. He didn't pound this time. He simply rang the bell, a long, insistent buzz. Simone, from the bedroom window, saw him. Dad, it's him. She hissed, panic erasing all the progress of the day. Julian motioned for everyone to stay silent. He positioned Ray by the door with a digital recorder. I took a steadying breath and went to the intercom by the door. "What do you want, Darnell?" His voice came through, slick and patronizing. "Mr. Vance, just here for a chat. Open up. We can be civil about this. We have nothing to civil about. Leave." "See, that's the attitude that creates problems," Darnell sighed, the sound dripping with false weariness. "Look, Marcus is willing to be generous. Simone comes back. Maya comes back. The misunderstandings about the house and car, we can work that out later. But this hiding, these lawyers you're talking to, it's not good for anyone. Especially not for an older gentleman like yourself. You don't want a stressful court battle." I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks. He was threatening me, thinly veiled as concern. "The only misunderstanding is your family's belief that you can steal and threaten your way through life. Now get off this property." His voice hardened, the facade crumbling. "Or what, old man? You'll call the cops? I'm a concerned brother-in-law asking after my family. You're the one harboring a wife away from her husband. Who do you think they'll believe? I'm giving you a chance to end this clean. Don't make me get ugly." It was a direct threat. I looked at Julian, who gave a sharp nod. "The conversation is over, Darnell," I said, my voice cold and final. "Any further contact will be documented as harassment and added to the restraining order application. Your choice." There was a long pause, then a sound of disgust, not quite a spit, but a forceful exhalation of contempt. The motorcycle engine roared to life, and he sped away. The confrontation left a toxic residue in the air. Simone was trembling again. "They won't stop. They'll keep coming." "They'll try," Julian acknowledged, "but tomorrow we begin turning their weapons back on them. Elias, remember your role at that calf. You're not a fighter tomorrow. You're a tired father who wants the noise to stop. Let them reveal themselves." The next morning, I dressed in simple, unassuming clothes. I felt like an actor going to an audition for a role I despised. Julian and Ray dropped me a block from the garden calf and took a table inside a bookstore with a clear view across the street. I entered the calf alone. Giselle and Marcus were already there, at a prime table. Giselle looked impeccable, a picture of grandmotherly concern in a lavender suit. Marcus wore a sharp, expensive-looking casual jacket, his expression one of strained patience. They looked like the respectable, aggrieved party. I felt a fresh wave of hatred, so potent it was a taste in my mouth. "Elias, thank you for coming," Giselle said, her voice a syrup of false warmth. She reached out and took both my hands, a gesture of intimate connection that made my skin crawl. "This has been so dreadful for everyone. We just want our girl and our baby home." I sat, allowing my shoulders to slump slightly, playing the part. "The video, people are saying terrible things. Simone is devastated. I can't have this spectacle." Marcus leaned forward, his voice a study in reasonable concern. "Sir, that's all we want to stop. The spectacle. Simone is not well. Postpartum issues, anxiety. Her running off like this, begging on street corners, it's proof she's not thinking clearly. Maya needs stability. She needs her father's home." I nodded, looking down at my hands as if ashamed. She might listen to me, if she thought there was a way forward, a way to repair some of the damage. The public humiliation, I let the sentence hang. Giselle's eyes sharpened, sensing weakness, sensing a deal. "The damage can be repaired, Elias. Of course, when Simone comes home, we'll get her the help she needs. And as a family, we can manage these practicalities. The car," I said, hesitant. "And the house? It's in her name. There's so much confusion. If she felt some security was returned, maybe. Marcus waved a dismissive hand, a small, contemptuous smirk touching his lips. Sir, with respect, that's a technicality. Simone is my wife. What's hers is part of our marital estate. The car is being used for the family. The house is our family home. Managing assets is a husband's responsibility. Her money helped my business grow, which supports the whole family. It's not hers or mine. It's ours. It was the admission, uttered with such casual arrogance. Giselle nodded along, adding softly, "It's how strong families work, Elias. Everyone contributes, and the head of the household directs for the common good. Simone's place is with her husband, contributing to that good, not hiding and causing scandal." I pressed, feigning confusion. "But you asked her to leave, a misunderstanding," Giselle said quickly, her smile tight. A heated moment. She's always been so dramatic. If she apologizes, accepts Marcus's guidance, and returns Maya, we can put this all behind us. We might even discuss a small allowance for her personal use from the household funds. I let my face show a glimmer of pathetic hope. So, if she comes back, things can go back to how they were, with the house and the car as part of the family? Of course, Marcus said, leaning back, the victor granting terms. That's always been the case. She just lost perspective. Bring her back, Mr. Vance, end this. For her sake, and for Maya's. Unless, his eyes grew colder, you want to force me to file formal custody papers. Then the courts will decide where Maya belongs, and I can assure you, given Simone's current public behavior, it won't be with her. The threat was laid bare, mingled with the confession of entitlement. I had what I came for. I stood up, my performance complete. I need to think. I'll talk to her. Giselle gave me a pitying smile. Do the right thing, Elias. Be the patriarch your family needs. I walked out of the cafe, the cool air feeling like a cleansing fire. I met Julian and Ray around the corner. Julian's face was grimly satisfied. We got it all. The marital estate argument, the dismissal of her property rights, the conditional return, the explicit custody threat. It's a perfect recording of coercive control and intent. The judge will hear not just our claims, but their own philosophy of ownership. We returned to the townhouse. The mood shifted. We had taken their measure and captured their voice. But the war had multiple fronts. As we walked in, Ray's phone was buzzing incessantly. He'd been monitoring the digital landscape. The smear campaign is accelerating, he reported. The video has been picked up by a local news' aggregator site. The comments are being heavily moderated to delete any doubt. They're creating a false consensus. And then, my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize, but with a local area code. I answered, putting it on speaker. A young, earnest-sounding voice came through. Mr. Vance? My name is Felix Carter. I'm a freelance journalist. I've been following the situation with your daughter online. I'd like to get your side of the story for a piece I'm writing. Julian's eyes narrowed. He scribbled on a notepad, "Trap? Plant?" I responded cautiously. "I have no comment at this time." "I understand," Felix said, his tone sympathetic. "It's just, the narrative is getting pretty one-sided out there. Claims of parental alienation, mental instability. If there's another side, the public should hear it. I have a source who mentioned a woman named Natalie Mercer, a shelter volunteer. That changed things. He had Natalie's name. This might be legitimate, or a very sophisticated trap." Julian took the phone. "Mr. Carter, this is Julian Thorne, legal counsel for the Vance family. If you are serious about balance reporting, you will receive a comprehensive package of information at the appropriate time directly from me. Any publication before that time will be considered legally actionable interference. Do you understand?" There was a pause. Yes, counselor, I understand. I just want the truth. Then stand by, Julian said, and hung up. He looked at us. The information war is beginning. We have the legal evidence. Now we need to prepare the counter-narrative, but we must control the timing. We release nothing until the restraining order and asset freeze are filed. We hit them in court and in the court of public opinion simultaneously, leaving them no room to maneuver. Simone had been listening from the doorway. The fear was still there, but it was now edged with something harder, a desire for justice. "What do I do?" she asked, her voice clearer than it had been in days. "You stay safe," Julian said. "You continue being a mother to Maya, and you prepare yourself. Because when we go public, you will need to stand firm as the living proof of their actions. Are you ready for that?" She looked at me, then down at Maya, who was gnawing peacefully on a teething ring. She straightened her spine. "Yes," she said. "I'm ready." We were no longer just hiding. We were fortifying. We had moved from victimhood to evidence, from panic to strategy. The chessboard was set, and we had just finished our opening moves. The middle game was about to begin, and it would be fought with subpoenas, forensic reports, and the unassailable truth of a mother's stolen life. They thought their money and connections were a shield. They forgot that the truth, once fully armed, is the most devastating weapon of all. What happens when the quiet, methodical force of the law starts to close in on those who believe they are above it? When every recorded word, every financial transfer, becomes a brick in a prison they built for themselves? The confrontation was coming, but it wouldn't be in a dark alley. It would be in a sunlit courtroom, where their own arrogance would be read back to them from a court transcript. The days following the CAF meeting were a study in controlled tension. We existed in a bubble of preparation. The townhouse became a command center. Julian filed the restraining order and the injunction to freeze the assets. The legal documents were masterpieces of narrative, weaving Simone's testimony, the recorded threats from Darnell and Leo, the financial trail Ray uncovered, and the damning admissions from Marcus and Giselle at the CAF into a single, devastating story. The story wasn't titled Custody Dispute. It was Petition for Protection from Coercive Control, Financial Exploitation, and Intentional Infliction of Emotional Distress. Ray's work was meticulous. He didn't just find the money trail, he mapped its ecosystem. The Waverly Family Holdings, LLC, was a shell, its only activity being the receipt of Simone's funds and their subsequent disbursement to Marcus's personal account and payments on Giselle's luxury car lease. He found the middleman trying to sell Simone's car, a shady character who, when presented with the injunction and a mention of felony charges for trafficking stolen property, immediately furnished all his text exchanges with Darnell. The house, it turned out, had been used as collateral for a business loan for one of Marcus's speculative ventures. The bank, notified of the dispute and the fraudulent nature of the signature on the collateral agreement, froze that loan and initiated its own fraud investigation. The legal machinery, once engaged, began to grind with a slow, inexorable force, but the public smear campaign continued to rage. The manipulated narrative of the unstable scam artist mother was gaining traction in certain cynical online circles. That was the battlefield Felix Carter, the journalist, had called about. After rigorous vetting by Ray, who confirmed Carter's legitimate, if small-time, reputation for digging into local power structures, Julian decided to engage. We would use him not just to counter the narrative, but to launch our own. We provided Felix with no gossip, no emotional appeals. We gave him documents, the redacted financial transfer records showing the siphoning of funds, a copy of the illegal eviction notice, the timeline of Simone's isolation, and a sworn affidavit from Natalie Mercer describing the terrified, barefoot woman and infant she found under the bridge. We also gave him the audio. Not all of it, but a cleaned, clear clip of Marcus at the calf saying, "What's hers is part of our marital estate. Managing assets is a husband's responsibility. Her money helped my business grow." And Giselle's chilling. It's how strong families work. Her place is with her husband, contributing to that good. Julian's instruction to Felix was precise. Publish the facts. Publish the evidence. Let the public hear their own words. Draw no conclusions. Simply present the timeline and the documents. Meanwhile, the effect on Simone was transformative. The constant work with Julian and Ray, reviewing documents, clarifying dates, building the unassailable chronology of her oppression, acted as a kind of cognitive therapy. She was reconstructing her own history, not as a series of personal failures, but as a case study in predatory behavior. One afternoon, she said to me, her voice steady, "I wasn't weak, Dad. I was systematically weakened. There's a difference." That was the moment I knew she would survive this and thrive. The first tremors of our counter-offensive hit the Waverly world. Marcus, served with the restraining order and asset freeze at his office, reportedly erupted in a fury that echoed through the building. The freeze meant his business accounts, commingled with the stolen funds, were locked. Creditors began calling. Giselle's social fade began to crack as whispers about legal trouble and that awful video of her son circulated at her charity luncheons. Darnell, the operative, found his usual avenues of greasy influence suddenly closed. No one wanted to be associated with a documented blackmailer. Their response was not surrender, but a final, reckless escalation. They filed for emergency sole custody of Maya, just as Julian predicted they would. Their petition was a masterpiece of distortion, painting Simone as mentally ill, a kidnapper, and a public nuisance, and me as a meddling patriarch funding her delusions. The hearing was set for 1 week later. "This is it," Julian told us the night before. "This is where we turn their last, best weapon against them. They've asked for a judicial ruling. We will give the judge more than they bargained for." The family courtroom was a sterile, solemn space. We arrived early. Simone wore simple, clean clothes we'd bought her, her hair neatly pulled back. She held Maya, now clean, well-fed, and alert, dressed in a fresh yellow outfit. She looked like what she was, a competent, caring mother. Julian, in his impeccable suit, was a pillar of quiet authority. Ray sat in the gallery, ready with files. I sat beside Simone, a hand on her shoulder. They entered. Marcus, Giselle, and Darnell with their lawyer, a sleek, expensive-looking man who oozed condescension. Marcus tried to catch Simone's eye, his expression a forced mix of concern and disappointment. She looked right through him, her gaze fixed ahead. Calm. Giselle's smile was brittle, her eyes darting around the room, assessing the enemy. Darnell looked irritated, as if this were a profound inconvenience. Their lawyer presented first. He spoke of the sanctity of the father-child bond, of the mother's flight from stability, of the public spectacle she'd created. He referenced the viral video, the begging charade. He presented affidavits from friends of the family, all Giselle's circle, attesting to Simone's erratic behavior and disrespect for Marcus. He requested the court grant Marcus temporary sole custody pending a full psychological evaluation of Simone, and order her to return to the marital home. It was a performance designed to play on stereotypes and fear. The judge, a stern-faced woman in her 60s, listened impassively, taking notes. Then, Julian stood. He didn't address the custody petition first. He asked the judge's permission to approach. Your Honor, before we address the petitioner's claims, I must bring to the court's attention the context in which this custody request is made. It is in fact a retaliatory action in furtherance of an ongoing pattern of criminal coercion and financial predation. Marcus's lawyer shot to his feet. Objection. Relevance and prejudice. I will hear it, the judge said, her eyes on Julian. Proceed. Counselor, make it relevant. Julian proceeded. For the next 30 minutes, he didn't argue. He presented. He entered into evidence Ray's financial analysis, showing the transfer of Simone's separate assets. He entered the recorded conversation with Darnell at the townhouse door, his voice clear in the quiet courtroom. You're the one harboring a wife away from her husband. Don't make me get ugly. He entered the text message threats, and then he played the CAF recording. Marcus's own voice, smug and entitled, filled the room. Sir, with respect, that's a technicality. Simone is my wife. What's hers is part of our marital estate. Her money helped my business grow, which supports the whole family. It's not hers or mine. It's ours. Giselle's voice followed. Genteel and venomous, it's how strong families work. Elias, her place is with her husband, contributing to that good, not hiding and causing scandal. The atmosphere in the courtroom changed palpably. The judge's impassive face hardened. Marcus had gone ashen. Giselle stared straight ahead, her jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle twitching. Darnell slouched lower in his seat. Julian then called Simone to the stand. His questioning was gentle but precise. He didn't ask her how she felt. He asked her what happened. He walked her through the timeline, from the first suggestion about her clothes to the shove on the stairs. She answered clearly, without hysterics, occasionally looking at Maya in my arms for strength. She was credible, specific, and devastating. Finally, Julian addressed the custody request directly. Your Honor, the petitioner seeks to remove this child from her primary caregiver, her mother, based on claims of instability that he and his family manufactured. They impoverished her. They isolated her. They stole from her. They illegally ejected her. And when she sought safety, they launched a campaign of public defamation and now seek to use this court to finish the job by taking the one thing she has left, her child. This is not a custody case. It is the final stage of an abduction that began with her bank account and ended with her dignity. We ask that the petitioner's request be denied in its entirety and that the restraining order be made permanent. Marcus's lawyer gave a weak, rambling rebuttal, but the life had gone out of his case. The judge didn't even wait for Julian's closing. She looked at Marcus, his mother, his brother, and then at Simone sitting tall in the witness chair. I have heard enough, she said, her voice cutting through the room. The petition for emergency custody is denied. The evidence presented by respondent demonstrates a pattern of behavior by the petitioner and his associates that is coercive, exploitative, and intended to dominate and control. The court finds the respondent, Simone Vance Waverly, to be a fit and caring mother, acting in the best interests of her child by removing herself and the child from a toxic and dangerous environment. The temporary restraining orders are made permanent against Marcus, Giselle, and Darnell Waverly. Furthermore, I am referring the financial documents and recordings to the district attorney's office for possible criminal investigation into theft, fraud, and coercion. Court is adjourned. It was over. Not with a bang, but with the gavel's crack. The legal fortress they had tried to use to crush Simone had collapsed on top of them. As we stood to leave, Marcus lunged forward, his composure shattered. "This isn't over. She's my wife. That's my child." A bailiff stepped between us. Julian simply looked at him. "It is over, Mr. Waverly. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it." We walked out of the courthouse into the sunlight. Simone was crying, but they were tears of release, of a pressure valve blowing after years of confinement. She hugged Maya fiercely. "She's safe," she whispered. "She's really safe." The public reckoning came the next day. Felix Carter's article was published. It was titled, "The Other Side of the Viral Video. Documents Reveal a Campaign of Coercion and Theft." It was brutal in its factual simplicity. It presented the timeline, the financial records, the audio clips. The comments section this time was a wave of revulsion and apology. The social media tide turned with violent speed. The people who had shared the scam artist narrative now shared the article, pretending they'd been skeptical all along. The Waverly name became synonymous with greed and cruelty. The consequences were swift and severe. Marcus's business, built on a fade of respectability and propped up by stolen money, imploded. Clients fled. The fraud referral from the judge triggered an audit that uncovered more irregularities. Giselle's social world evaporated. She became a pariah, a subject of horrified gossip. Darnell faced disciplinary action from the State Bar Association for his role in the fraudulent document signings. We didn't celebrate. We rebuilt. Simone began therapy in earnest. She used a modest portion of the funds we eventually recovered. The car was returned. The house was sold, with the equity going to her. The stolen money was partially recouped through a civil judgment to take online courses in counseling, wanting to help others who had experienced coercive control. She learned to be a mother without fear, to make decisions without seeking permission. Maya blossomed into a toddler of radiant health and fierce curiosity. Months passed. Life found a new, peaceful rhythm. One afternoon, I was driving Simone and Maya across the city to a new park. We came to that same vast intersection, the one where my world had broken apart. The light turned red. I stopped. And then I saw them, on the median strip, holding a crudely lettered cardboard sign. An older woman, her elegant clothes replaced by worn, dirty layers, her perfectly coiffed hair now a wild gray nest. Next to her, a man in a stained jacket, his head down, counting a few coins in his palm. It was Giselle and Marcus. They looked decades older, hollowed out by shame and consequence. They weren't looking at the cars. They were staring at the ground, as if the weight of the world had finally bent their necks. The roles had been reversed with a poetic, brutal symmetry. Simone gasped softly from the back seat. She was looking, too. "It's them," she breathed. I said nothing. I felt no vindictive joy, no schadenfreude. I felt a profound, quiet completion. The circle had closed. The predators had been consumed by the environment of desperation they had sought to impose on another. Maya, from her car seat, babbled happily, pointing at a passing bus with a cartoon ad on its side. Simone leaned forward, her voice calm and clear, no trace of the old fear. "Dad," she said, "the light is green." I looked up. It was. I eased my foot off the brake and drove forward, leaving the intersection and its ghosts behind us. In the rearview mirror, I saw Giselle look up, her eyes briefly meeting the departing car. There was no recognition, only a blank, exhausted despair. Marcus never looked up from his counting. We drove on, towards the park, towards home, towards a future they could no longer touch. This story began at a red light, with a world shattered. It ends on a green light, moving forward. The journey wasn't about revenge, it was about restoration. It was about the unbreakable strength of a parent's love and a survivor's spirit. But it also serves as a stark reminder: there are predators who don't lurk in alleyways, but in living rooms, wearing smiles and wielding paperwork. Their weapon is not violence, but the slow, patient corrosion of a person's autonomy. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think about the hidden battles people fight, then I ask you to do one thing. Please, take a second to like this video and mention the Files of Sephora in a comment below. Your engagement helps stories like this reach those who might need to hear them most. Someone feeling alone in their own intersection of despair. Have you ever witnessed or experienced a similar struggle against covert control? What would you have done in my place? Your thoughts and stories matter in the comments below. Don't forget to follow the page for more powerful narratives of resilience. Thank you for staying until the end.